27th, 2024 special meeting of the City Council is called to order. The time is 6 p.m. Before we begin, council, please put away cell phones. If you have personal business during the meeting, please move for a recess. As a reminder to all attendees, this meeting is being streamed live. The camera is located directly above the clock in the back of the council chambers. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Graham?
Here.
Councilmember Johnson?
Here.
Councilmember Crafton?
Here.
Councilmember Vacant?
Here.
Councilmember Rubio?
Here.
You do have a quorum, Madam Mayor. All council members are present with us in chambers except Councilmember Johnson, who is participating telephonically. Council seat A is vacant.
Thank you. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and Mr. Crafton, would you lead us, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the first item of business is approval of the agenda. Are there changes to the agenda? Hearing none, the agenda is approved as presented. We are now at public participation. We are at persons to be heard, a time for members of the public to share their views with the council. This is not a question and answer period or a time for dialogue. Speakers may be referred to administration, or issues raised may be taken under advisement by the council or administration. And we have no one on the sign-up sheet. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to come before the council at this time? Seeing no one, we will close persons to be heard. There is no unfinished business, so we'll move directly to new business. Madam Clerk, please read the title of the item.
Thank you. AM number 2413, appointment to fill vacant council seat A, interview of applicants and appointment.
Okay. Discussion of interview process. The clerk has suggested an interview process as outlined in the AM. How does the council wish to proceed?
have no objections.
Okay. All right. There is no objection, so we will proceed with the interviews. Crystal, would you take Mr. Bushnell and Ms. Cottle upstairs to the mayor's conference room, please? Mr. Johnson, would you please mute your phone? Okay. Mr. Anthony Borges, would you please come forward?
Through the chair, thank you, Madam Mayor, to the council. So first applicant, we took these alphabetical by last name, is Mr. Anthony Borges. You have 5 minutes, Mr. Borges, to make a statement to the city council, followed by a question and answer period. Council, you have been handed out the interview questions here, and if there's no objection, if you want to ask them in alphabetical order, we'll start with Mr. Crafton and then Graham, Johnson, Rubio, and finally Vlock. Is that okay? And I do have a timer, sir, so I'll time the 5 minutes. Thank you.
You may go.
Madam Mayor, council members, thank you for hearing me this evening. You know, I gave a lot of thought as to what I should say, you know, and a list of my qualifications is boring. You know, I just thought I'd give myself an opportunity to introduce me to you and perhaps maybe allow you to get to know me through that. In 2003 was when my wife and I moved to Wasilla. We moved out here because I had to have 3 jobs in order for my wife to stay home and raise our child. And Wasilla was the only place that we could afford a home. We were living in Anchorage at the time. You know, we had just moved up from Petersburg in Southeast a couple years prior to that. And when I came to Wasilla, it was affordable, it was wide open. there were a lot less restrictions personally than what we were living under in Anchorage. And up until that time, I had never spent any significant time here, but, I came to love Wasilla. This became my home. It's where, since we moved out here, we've had 6 other children, so we have 7 now. My oldest, she's, halfway through with her college education. And having 3 jobs, that got to be burdensome. So I thought there has to be an easier way, and that's when I started selling real estate out here in the valley. And boy, if you could have had an opportunity to do that back in 2003, it was an amazing time for real estate. If you could just answer the phone and hold it together, you were going to make a lot of money, and I did for a very long time. And economies change and things don't always remain the same. So, in 2008 and 9, when, real estate wasn't performing so well, I went to work for Lithium Motors. And I've been working for Chevrolet Wasilla now for years and years. I was a salesman there for a very long time. And, through, achievement and merit, I've made my way into senior management here at Chevrolet of Wasilla. And, in cooperation with the other managers there, we've managed to transform that store into, what was a subpar third-rate store as far as our company was concerned into a contender. We now compete with the biggest dealerships in Anchorage as far as volume goes. Wasilla, I believe, is just full of potential and opportunity. We've grown our dealership out here to the point to where it's competing with the larger stores in Anchorage. I've raised a family out here that it's working very well, and I think right now we're at a point in history where, the valley on the whole, and specifically Wasilla, we can grow this community, grow this area into something that's intensely competitive with Anchorage. Our population just keeps growing out here. And I know that if a proper foundation is laid, the day can come where, our humble little city has an opportunity to be on par with Anchorage. And to be able to participate in that is something that I would genuinely like to do. I don't have any political ambitions beyond this room. I'm not seeking higher office than here. My home is Wasilla. It's where I love to be, and to be able to join you in a time where I believe that if things are done correctly, the results can be amazing for my family and for generations to come. Did I just run out of time? Okay.
Disclaimer on there, sir.
I heard the beep, and so I came up with a concluding sentence real quick. No, I look forward to being of service, and I thank you for the opportunity to sit here. And Wasilla is my home, and I love it here. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Crafton.
Thank you, Mayor. Do you want me to do both of them, or do we want to do one each?
I would do one at a time.
One at a time. Well, I mean, Robert.
And then do both of them.
What strategies would you employ to ensure the transparency and accountability in city government, particularly regarding budgetary decisions and expenditures?
Ask the first part of that again.
What strategies would you employ to ensure transparency and accountability in city government?
That's kind of the great thing about transparency and accountability is I don't have to develop a strategy. I just have to be transparent and I have to be accountable. In my work now, I'm one of the department heads there, and I'm accountable to those above me and to the shareholders of the company. I know it's different in the public sector. I don't struggle with morality, and I have no agenda outside of being of service to the city of Wasilla, so I don't foresee myself ever being in a position where there wouldn't be anything I wouldn't be willing to be transparent about, or I don't see myself being in danger of doing anything I would be afraid to be held accountable for. So there's no unique strategies required. If I just continue on in this role as I conduct myself in my normal life, it's a given.
Thank you. Number 2 would be, what steps would you take to promote economic development and job creation in Wasilla while also preserving the city's unique character and quality of life?
The other night I was listening to the mayoral debate for the city of Anchorage. And many, many times, I don't know if any of you got to watch it, it was interesting, they kept referring to Wasilla. And they kept referring to how during the pandemic, Wasilla responded versus how Anchorage responded. And in case you ever wondered, they envy you. They envy us. And I think Wasilla, this goes to my opening statement. Wasilla right now, we're having a giant influx of population right now. I just learned the other day that there are 90,000 people within a 10-mile radius of the room we're sitting in right now. Growth is happening. How can we become more business friendly? How can we attract those sorts of things? You're doing a wonderful job of it. As somebody who runs a business that's within the city of Wasilla now, you're doing a wonderful job of it, and you might not have to create new ways to be inviting, but we certainly have to be vigilant when it comes to not over-governing these things, not overtaxing these things, not burdening people to the point where somewhere else is more desirable. And right now, the way that I've seen the city conduct itself, this is business friendly. Build it and they will come. The environment already exists. If we can just preserve that, that development, that opportunity, that the job growth, it will come as a natural extension of just being friendly and open to it.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Graham.
Thank you. Mr. Borges, I'm Stu Graham. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being active in our city. And thank you for what you have done to this point. I have 2 questions for you, much like the previous questioner did. The first one's kind of long, and it kind of has 3 sentences in it. I would be happy to repeat it. Just ask me to repeat it. And I'm sure these other people would probably want to repeat it as well, but they have it in front of them. So, Mr. Borges, as a council person, you have a continuous opportunity and responsibility to amend, improve, and enforce city code through budgeting, listening, and proposing solutions which move the city forward. As such, you have a tremendous opportunity to showcase and promote your experience and values. What experience will you leverage, and what values will you use to make Wasilla a better place for citizens?
Well, over the last 10 years with the company I'm currently with, it has been my honor to, in cooperation with the other department heads, not too dissimilar from what's happening here, it's a cooperative effort, to foster an environment that is welcoming, that is productive, and that is a place that people want to be, while trying to grow a business, which we've been very successful at. So I like to think of where I'm at now as not too dissimilar from a small city. You know, can you repeat the second part of that question, please?
Certainly,
I'm really glad you made me that offer because I'm going to take advantage of it right now.
anytime. So as such, you have a tremendous opportunity to showcase and promote your experience and values. What experience will you leverage, and what values will you use to make Wasilla a better place for citizens?
Okay, I'm glad you've read it all because this was the last part of it that I wanted to hear again. As far as the values go, when approaching problems or when trying to find solutions, I find it best to be honest about the problem and to the best of my ability, discern a solution with others that will promote the greatest good. I've learned that, in dealing with situations, whatever solution is arrived at is not going to be pleasing to everybody. And sometimes you have to choose between the lesser of two evils when solving problems or when you're trying to accomplish goals. I'm a moral man. I have 7 children. And I do allow my conscience to guide me. At the end of every decision, at the end of every process, I know that I've done the best that I can, and I've never made decisions that have kept me awake at night after action has been implemented to see them through. So I hope that answers your question.
It does, sir. Thank you. Second question here. What are the 3 biggest priorities for the city council to address? And here I'm not referring to specific projects, but rather to general categories. So again, what are the 3 biggest priorities for the city?
Well, priority 1 is the maintenance of liberty for all citizens. That's a non-negotiable with me. I'm not a believer of big government, and I'm not a proponent of government intrusion into private lives. And I think on the whole, that's one thing that Wasilla does better than a lot of other governments around. And I would commend you for that good work so far. What was the other part of your question?
3 biggest priorities for the city council to address.
Maintenance of liberty, growth of business, finding ways and fostering an environment that is inviting to grow our business base and to develop more employment opportunities for the citizens of Wasilla. I spent many years commuting to Anchorage, and I wouldn't wish that on anybody. So, whatever can be done toward achieving the goal of people living and working, not just in Wasilla, but in the Valley is an issue that I really look forward to exploring and finding ways to make that happen. And you asked for a third.
Yes, sir.
For a long time, Wasilla was one of the most affordable places to come and live. And I think that that's still a reality today, but I see it eroding. To encourage developing affordable housing for all is something that I believe is a noble goal and can be worked toward and achieved.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Those are my questions. I think we're on to Mr. Johnson. I did, yes. Did I put you to sleep?
Mr. Johnson?
Yes, Madam Mayor, and Mr. Burgess, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine, thank you.
Very good. Well, thank you for your application. I really appreciate your willingness to put yourself forward into this position. So with this, I have 2 questions. The first one is quite simple. What experience do you have in the process of budgeting and understanding financial statements?
Your phone broke up at the last three words of your question. What experience do I have with what?
What experience do you have in the budgeting process and understanding financial statements?
Well, for a long time now, I've held a management position at a Fortune 500 company, and prior to the position that I hold now, I was a finance manager. Departments have budgets. They have to be lived within. And as a father of 7 children in a single family home, a lot of times there's a lot of month left over after the money's gone. I have much practice at living within my means, both in my personal life and in my business life. I've managed budgets very well for my employer, and I do an okay job for myself personally. Is that what you were looking for?
Yes, thank you very much. For the second question I have for you, apart from the fact that you have your current employment, do you have any perceived conflicts of interest, such as personal business interests within the city, extended family who owns businesses within the city, or family members who are employed or associated with the city?
You broke up a little bit there, but I believe your question was, do I have any conflicts of interest? And you described a couple of different possibilities of that.
Yes, that is correct.
No, I have only a single employer. I have no interest in any business out here. I sit on no boards. I'm beholden to no one. I have no access to grind nor any enemies.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Rubio?
Thank you. My first question is, what priority issue would you champion to improve services to Wasilla residents? And what recommendations would you bring forward to support the proposal?
Where my house is located, I am about 300 feet away from a municipal sewer system. And while the valley is growing and Wasilla is booming, there's a lot of vital infrastructure that doesn't exist. I'm 300 feet away from a municipal sewer system. I do have city water at my house. You probably see me walking through the halls upstairs once a month to pay my water bill. I would like to make an effort, to get these essential things that many larger municipalities offer. If there were to be a way to grow that, I would like to explore those options. And as far as achieving that goes, I know there's several ways that governments raise money. Without doing a deep dive into what would be the best or the least impactful to the citizenry, I can't really speak to that intelligently. But infrastructure that's on par with any first-rate city would be one of my priorities. Funding it, we would have to discuss that further at a different time.
Thank you. And question 2, what are your priorities or your philosophy in how city revenue should be spent?
That's a great question, and I think that the city of Wasilla has found a way in the past that I would like to see maintained into the future. It's a very minimally impactful tax structure here. When somebody buys one of the high-end things that we sell where I work, they are capped at $12.50. And there's a lot of people that call and want to do business with us from Anchorage that don't know that. They think it just goes on and on. And, it's a wonderful tax system that we have here now. I know taxes are necessary. I'm not a fan of them. I don't enjoy paying them. But something has to fund government. Somebody has to pay for the pothole to get fixed. What was the second part of your question?
In how city revenue should be spent.
How city revenue should be spent. Safety for citizens is paramount. Maintaining infrastructure is paramount. I am very financially conservative. So I'm not a fan of what I see other larger municipalities doing. I know right now Anchorage is debating spending millions of dollars to install very expensive toilets all around town, and I could just imagine I wouldn't be such a fan of that project if it were proposed out here in Wasilla.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Vlock?
Thank you, and thank you for willing to sit there in the hot seat. Could you please tell us about your previous experiences in group decision-making and how these experiences could be utilized on the city council?
Absolutely. I'm one of the department heads where I work, so I have to work in cooperation with other management department heads to further our cause as one collective business. There's nothing that happens, none of us there are an island. We all have to live together. So, when we set goals for ourselves as a company, we have to get together and we have to listen to everybody's recommendations and listen to everybody's limitations and maybe revise our goals to accommodate what we're capable of or what we're not capable of at any particular time. But working in collaborative effort with other people is nothing new to me. And in fact, I've become quite adept at it. And for the last 10 years, we've managed to increase the amount of business we're doing year over year to a level to where we're a force to be reckoned with as far as, in our particular industry goes. So I'm no stranger to it. If it's done correctly, it's a pleasurable experience. And, I look forward to bringing all those experiences that I have from, the private world to bear on my duties here with the council.
Oh, okay.
I hope that answered you.
Yeah, oh yeah, it does. Yeah, if you're used to having to get along with others.
I'm
It sounds
53.
like-
I'm still working on it.
Okay, and the last question is, can you tell us how you would like the city of Wasilla to look in the next 5 years?
When you say how the city of Wasilla should look in the next 5 years, are you talking about the aesthetic of Wasilla or something more?
It can be just however you want to look at it, if government-wise, aesthetic-wise, or just ran differently, or what would you like to see? Because if you do get on the council, you might be reelected,
No.
and you will be helping make those decisions.
I think we're at a point in history right now that if I live in Wasilla, I enjoy my life in Wasilla, and that is a direct effect of how Wasilla has been governed up until now. I do notice that every day when I leave work, it's taking me longer and longer to drive home. There's more and more vehicles on our roads. The traffic jam that used to go from the light at Target about to Herman Road is now, back to the bridge by Walmart. So they're coming, and if we can lay a foundation, if we can find the target and accurately aim for it, we can have a boom in housing, a boom in business. It just has to be managed correctly. In 5 years, the level of thriving can be something that we can't even conceive of today. But what we do today is going to have an effect, you know, on that years to come, long after I'm no longer, you know, if I have the honor of serving, long after I'm gone, you know, the decisions I make, the things that we do are going to have an impact, and I would like to set up future generations for success economically, for success socially, for success governmentally. Wasilla is one of the best run cities in the state as far as I'm concerned, and preserving that is in a lot of ways more important than reinventing the wheel. You know, I'm not sitting here because a lot is going wrong. I'm sitting here because a lot is going right. And if it continues going right, there's no saying what Wasilla could look like in 5 years from now. But I would like to have a participatory role in the thriving, bountiful place that I believe it will be in 5 years.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, and that concludes your interview. So
I
if
was
you'd like to,
looking forward to your questions. Not tonight, huh?
I don't get to vote. So if you're welcome to have a seat in the audience again.
Thank you for hearing me tonight. I
And
look forward to
Crystal,
being of
if
service.
you would bring Mr. Bushnell.
Yes, that'd be lovely.
Six. Even though we didn't get him in by the deadline.
That's important. I was gonna call.
I knew you would give us a deadline, but it was one of those things when I looked, I was like,
Well,
completely spaced you asked for it by then.
Keep in mind the last night after closing, so.
Madam Clerk.
Sure, our next applicant is Mr. Eric Bushnell. And so Eric, what we're gonna do is you have 5 minutes, up to 5 minutes to make an opening statement to address the city council. And then, once that's concluded, each council member will ask 2 questions and we'll go in alphabetical order, starting with Mr. Crafton. So, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Good evening, City Council of Wasilla. My name is Eric Bushnell. I believe I have met most of you at one point in time in my career living here in the city of Wasilla. I first came to Wasilla in 1972. My parents brought me out here to visit family for the very first time on Lake Lucille, where they lived. So I've seen this community grow over the years. Graduated from Wasilla High School in 1986, went off to college, came back after a year, and Teelan's was gone. And they had built a 7-Eleven at the time. So I've watched the city grow. One of my favorite pieces of artwork is the one that my uncle drew one time of the full old stop sign that used to be at Main Street. And it showed a traffic accident with 2 moose standing next to the stop sign laughing basically at the humans that couldn't get across the street. You look at that now and you look at how the city of Wasilla is growing, and I've been listening to some of the council meetings, and there's been a lot of talk of the growth of Wasilla, and there's a lot of attacks on which direction, and everybody has an opinion. And keeping the city growing and going steady, I think, is very important, and not being distracted by the headwinds of the day. A little bit about myself. I did grow up here in Wasilla. I went to Wasilla High School, but then I moved away, went off to Arizona to go to college, ended up in Steamboat Springs, became a ski bum, managed a bar down there. It was a little one. It was 5th ever Buffalo Wild Wings. Wrote the menu for them. They became their restaurants that you now experience today in Anchorage and all over the world. It's actually one of the largest franchises in the world. And unfortunately, I missed the boat 30 years ago and didn't get my portion of the Boulder franchise. But I learned a lot from working with them. And I got my first commercial real estate lesson back then when we were looking for real estate. And it's all about location. And when you're looking for a place, there's a lot of different things that go into what is important about that location. Where the traffic's coming from, when are they going to turn in? You don't want them turning left across the street. And these were simple lessons, but they've helped me to this day in my real estate career. And a month from a couple days ago, it'll be my 20th year, when I got my license here in the state of Alaska. And it's done me well. I've worked for 2 brokerages, one in Eagle River for a long time, was at one point in time the 6th largest brokerage in the country, 4th actually largest in its network, and we were the 6th largest in the state of Alaska, my little office. I now work for a commercial brokerage here in the Valley and manage properties here in the city of Wasilla. So I see different things. I experience different issues that the city is having. One of the issues I'm having right now is I'm exploring a water issue in one of my buildings that I manage, trying to determine if it's me or you. Is it a city issue on my supply lines, or is it something of equipment inside my building that is turning the water periodically orange and yellow? So we're going to explore that, and I understand that the city has gone through issues with its water system, wind damage. I've experienced the same on many of the buildings that I manage. So the things that the city has to deal with, I've had to deal with as a business owner here, or business manager. I'm not a business owner, I'm a business manager. I manage the company that I work for the Lee family. But I've watched what is happening in the city. I worked on the planning commission. I had an opportunity to volunteer for that. Mr. Cottle asked me to join the commission. I think I did it for about 5 years. It was almost 2 full terms. Unfortunately, I had to leave just prior to the end of my commission at the end of 2002 due to my wife's illness. She's doing great now, looking for a job. The employment market is not all that everybody talks about, because she is overqualified and not having a good time finding a job. So it depends on the industry. Our city is got a good economy, and it's got some struggles. There are businesses in our community that are not doing good. And I think that if we look at city sales tax and things like that, we have some turmoil over the next 6 to 8 months. And then we have a lot of money that will probably be rolling into our community through wages, inflows, some of the money that's coming into the state of Alaska, into Nome, Anchorage, up to the slope, things like that. So the guidance of the city and keeping things steady and listening to people as we go is very important. I'm about out of time, so I'll wrap this up. It would be a privilege to be on the city council, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Mr. Crafton.
Thank you, Mayor. It's good to put a face with the name, Mr. Bushnell. We've chatted a few times, but never met in person. My first question is, what strategies would you employ to ensure transparency and accountability in city government, particularly regarding budgetary decisions and expenditures? I can repeat questions too if you need.
No, I think the idea of transparency is I love the word, but it can be a sword by some people. But the question is are questions being answered by the people that want the information? Do people understand what's going on? So as a budget, I've went on several boards, the State Real Estate Commission. I was a treasurer on the Rotary Board. And so some boards just give you a budget, and then here's the numbers, and you can do something about it. My first job in real estate, they would hand me a budget, and here it is. And I said, well, what about, oh no, you can't do anything about it. And the numbers would change. That budget was not transparent. But when you have a budget and you go through the process and people have the ability to answer questions or ask questions and have them answered about specific line items, I've listened to some of it, and then they get to have their say about it. They may not like the answer they get, but at least they were part of the process. And I think part of the process, being involved in it, is the transparency.
Thank you. Second question is, what steps would you take to promote economic development and job creation in Wasilla while also preserving the city's unique character and quality of life?
That's a hard one, because you want to build the city on retail and commercial development. At the same time, in order to have that, you have to have employees. Now, we're lucky in this community that we have a large amount of land around us that, and a ton of people, about 100, depending on the count, 117 to 120,000 people in the borough. But I think it's safe to say that 70 to 90,000 of them live probably within 10 miles of here, fairly close. So we have good jobs. I used to work in Eagle River, and they wanted to grow Eagle River a lot, but the issue was we didn't have affordable housing. So it was hard to get the employees for the jobs. So it's a balance. You have to have good affordable housing. I've been seeing things that are going around the peripheral area of the city where we've brought in some different developments, and I think they're tying into some of the city infrastructure for water, things like that. And I think that's really important, because if we can bring in those people that can fill the service sector jobs, which are so important, then the rest of our economy can thrive. Because those people will build, they're the building blocks. They buy the house, they rent, then they buy a house, then they start a business, and they're that cycle of life within inside of our community.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Graham.
Thank you for being here, Eric. It's good to see you back. I sat through many a planning commission meeting and appreciate the work that you did there. So this first question has a lot of words in it, but the question itself is pretty simple. Please let me know if you would like me to repeat it, and I can repeat it as many times as possible. So as a council person, you have a continuous opportunity and responsibility to amend, improve, and enforce city code through budgeting, listening, and proposing solutions which will move the city forward. As such, you have a tremendous opportunity to showcase and promote your experience and values. What experience will you leverage, and what values will you use to make Wasilla a better place for the citizens?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Graham. The opportunity to serve as a council member, I think, is very important to understand why, for myself, that I would want to do it. Being able to be a councilman, you're going to be here, you can bring forth legislation, ordinances that can be approved. They have to go through a public process. They need to be for the good of the community. That's the neat thing about the public process. And if the rest of the council doesn't agree with it, it doesn't even get heard. So you also have to have a good working relationship with the other council members. And understanding, I think that's why there's different people here, is there may be an issue that's happening in the city, and somebody may be upset about something. They need to be heard, but maybe we need an ordinance to correct it. Maybe we don't. And so I think each time you have somebody, a constituent, come to you and you have a chance to be heard, or they have a chance to be heard, I think that's the most important part. And then try to vet their idea, the process. Does it work in the city of Wasilla? Does it not? So I like hearing discussions, and that's what I love about, sometimes I hate about the public process, but I love about the public process, is you get to talk about different issues, up one side and down the other, and decide whether it's good or not. My wife gets mad at me all the time because I do that to her. She's like, I thought you were for that. I'm like, well, I am. She goes, why are you talking against it? Because I want to hear what it sounds like. I want to hear what that opinion is like. So I think from being a representative and making sure that I do the right thing is, one, take a deep breath when there's a decision to be made. Make sure I listen to everybody that's around me, including other council members, and don't overreact. But then, if it's important, be steadfast in my opinion. And I know that having been on the planning commission that my opinion isn't always the one that wins the day. And I've tried to persuade other planning commission members to my side, but at times they said no. And that's just part of the process. So sometimes you're gonna be able to move things forward and not, and you can't get discouraged. But you can't be over jubilant when you do get something, because then other people may not want to play with you in the future. Does that answer the question? Did I cover all the points?
You're doing just fine, thank you, sir. So, the next question, what are the 3 biggest priorities for the city council to address? And here I'm not referring to specific projects, but to general categories. So again, what are the 3 biggest priorities for the city council to address?
Number 1 is managing the city infrastructure, the legacy of the city, the things that have been put in place over time, the decisions of our forefathers that have helped build this city. They made decisions. We need to look at that at each year, and every time there's a decision, things have to be looked at. So I think that managing the city's infrastructure is a high priority. Through that would be the budgetary aspect of being fiscally responsible. So we have to take care of our what we have. We have to be fiscally responsible and spend the money. And we have to spend money. I mean, that's one of the things I have heard is we are debt-free as a city. But I know we have a lot of deferred maintenance. So we've got to take care of that. And I deal in property management, I deal with deferred maintenance, and it is expensive. The longer it goes, it's procrastination. You kick that can down the road, and it becomes super expensive. And you don't want to deal with it. So being fiscally responsible, taking care of that. And then the other thing is we have 2 sets of people that we have to take care of. We have to take care of the constituents, and we have to take care of our city employees. And you don't think of the city of Wasilla as being a very big employer. I never thought of the city of Wasilla being a very big employer. I mean, I think of the school district as being a big employer in the area. I just didn't really pay attention to how many people work inside the city, because not everybody says, hey, I work for the city. So, but a lot of people say they live in Wasilla, or they say they're proud of where they are. And I think that's important, being able to have both sets of people, the people who live in Wasilla say, I'm proud to live in Wasilla, and the people that work for the city of Wasilla say, I'm proud to work for the city of Wasilla. So how do you balance all that, being fiscally responsible, pay for what's needed? And has to be a balance there. And there's lots of different ways to achieve it, and the city is doing a fairly good job of being fiscally responsible, not spending too much money, but we need to fix some stuff. And so I think if things are focused along those lines, the rest of it will follow. The economic growth and the other things will happen.
Thank you.
Mr. Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Rochelle. I'm sorry I've never had the chance to meet you. I'm also sorry that I'm not in chambers tonight to actually interface with you. So hopefully you'll be able to understand my questions and work with the audio system. So I apologize in advance. The first question I have is, what experience do you have in the budgeting process and understanding financial statements?
Okay. Thank you for the question, Mr. Johnson. And no, I don't think we've actually personally met. You were the one member of the council that I was not familiar with. So one day we will meet. What experience do I have? One is I'm the broker of Lee Realty. I manage 13 commercial buildings here in the borough. Several of them are here in the city of Wasilla. My bookkeeping that I use is QuickBooks. That's what I'm comfortable with. I won't say that I'm an expert at it, but I think I'm pretty good at it. So I have to manage my businesses and the different companies, and I'm very responsible for other people's money. For many years, I was the treasurer of the Eagle River Rotary in Eagle River, And we worked with setting a budget for there. We helped, one of the projects that we built in Eagle River was the handicap accessible park. And we basically added about 2/3 the size to that park. The community came out with us. We took a $15,000 project and turned it into a $250,000 project and had it completed in 4 months. It was amazing. I didn't think it ever could be accomplished. It was done. But we had to account for the monies. We had to set the budget. I've been through that process year after year. I know how to read a spreadsheet, look through it, ask the questions. A lot of times, especially in a budget, depending on the layers of it, things will move from pocket to pocket to pocket, and you have to be able to follow the money and understand that I'm paying for something over here, but it's actually doing something over here. So being able to understand the budget really is going to be as important of who's explaining it to me if I'm not building it. If I was building it myself, which I build budgets for my buildings to look at my cash flow from year to year, I think I'm very comfortable in that process. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. Very, very well done. The second question I have is sort of an ethical one, just to get it on the table. Do you have any perceived conflicts of interest, such as personal business interests within the city, extended family who owns businesses within the city, or family members employed or associated with the city? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I do not feel that I have any family conflicts at this point in time. My immediate family is no longer, my father and my mother only live here part of the time, and so they're not doing anything that would be of a conflict. I do not own any businesses inside the city limits. I manage properties. To my understanding, should something come up and there is a conflict, I would need to explain it, what I feel that it may be, and then it would be up for you guys to determine whether or not it was actually a conflict of interest and whether I should proceed or not. But at this point in time, I mean, even I think the managing of the buildings that I do here is not really a conflict, but an asset as far as understanding how businesses have to interact, how customers have to interact, and also, of course, like all of us here, we're all homeowners here in the city of Wasilla, so I have that hat too.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Ms. Rubio.
Thank you. My first question for you, what priority issue would you champion to improve services to Wasilla residents? And what recommendations would you bring forward to support the proposal?
I knew that question would come. And to be honest, I had checked out of the city of Wasilla for about a year after the Planning Commission took care of my wife for her medical procedures last year. And as of late, now that she started working for a job, I decided I needed to get back involved. And it was funny, I was having the conversation about getting back involved and being aware of what's going on around here, because part of it is my job. I need to know what's going on. And I said something to somebody, and they popped on the City of Wasilla website and said, "There's a vacancy." I went, "What?" They said, "Well, you got until this afternoon to put in an application." So I did. Priorities. You know, I see things within the city, and it's mainly from an infrastructure standpoint that I see that I would look towards that. And I've heard a lot of people complain about different things. We got the main couplet, they complain about how that's going. They complained about how our planning commission worked in the past. But I don't have a pet project at the moment that I'm looking at that I want to get on the commission to do. I wasn't campaigning to get on the office as a member, but what I want to bring to the council is a voice, a common sense voice. I've listened to a lot of the testimony, and I think I have input. I've listened to a lot of the combined meetings that you guys have addressed with the short-term rentals, and I heard certain questions, and it's like, I can answer that. And it just kind of it got deflected, and it probably wasn't really an issue, but it became an issue. So I would like to see some of those things cleaned up. I'd like to finish it. I started the process from the planning commission side. I'd like to finish some of those things, help clean up especially the anything to do with commercial zoning, landscaping, things like that. Because it's a beautification of our city. It's the part that people see when they come in to our city. And I know that's one of the things that I need to get more up to speed on what the city budget is. But it's one of the things that I saw when I came back last summer. There was a flower bed that was put in front of the Snyder Crossing. There was 2 of them that were installed by the city, by the Chamber of Commerce as part of a beautification project some 20 plus years ago. And they've been there forever, and the city has been taking care of them and putting flowers, and then they got rid of them. And I don't know the process of why, but we need things within the city, especially in the summer, to bring people in and spend money here. So that's what that's what I like. I like business development, so I'm probably going to be looking at things like that. When I was on the Valley Board of Realtors, when I worked my way through that, and I was the president, and when I was the president of the Chamber of Commerce, or not president of the Chamber of Commerce, when I was on the board of directors of the Chamber of Commerce in Eagle River, and when I was on the board at the Rotary Club, my goal was never to, change the world. What I wanted to do was have input. I wanted to be part of the conversation, but I wanted to make sure it was a good conversation. So whatever it will be probably along what I'm good at, which is economic development and business. Unless there's something else that somebody comes to me and I go, you're right, it's a really good idea. But there's been some projects that have happened in the city that, it's funny, I had a conversation with a city police officer one day, back behind one of the buildings that I manage over behind Brown Jug. And we had found somebody sleeping in a closet that was on the back of the building. I didn't even know the closet existed. And somebody told me about it, so I went back there and I found him, and he gave me the keys because he had rekeyed the closet for me. So the guy gave me his keys, and we trespassed him, and he left. I was talking to the police officer about how it would be really nice if, the piece of property across the street from where my house is going to be building. It was funny. It was where that even conversation came up. It was a couple years ago. So it's glad to see that things like that are happening that might help consolidate some of the issues within the city with our homeless, and that's an aspect that nobody really wants to talk about, but it has to happen. So maybe there'll be something along that lines. I'm not sure.
Thank you. Question 2, what are your priorities or your philosophy in how city revenue should be spent?
One, the money should be spent. A city is kind of like a nonprofit in a way. It takes in X number of dollars, and it should spend those X number of dollars each year. So, and I don't know the exact wording that the city has as far as what they have to do, but I'm sure it's probably along those lines. But then you set up your capital improvement budgets, things like that. I think there's more that the city of Wasilla can do with its tax base. How that looks, it's great to throw an idea out there, and then you see the ramifications of it, and then you have to decide what to do with it from there. But I think that the city of Wasilla has the ability to, we have so many retail establishments around here, and that's what we're shooting for. Are we leveraging that to be able to build up the rest of our city, the rest of the way, the things that we need? And so I think that would be one of the priorities that I would look at as far as city's expenditures is, are we maximizing the amount of money to build up to prop up our city, or are we wanting everybody else to build our city for us? And I think there can be a balance of both, public and private partnership. I would prioritize things like that.
Thank you.
Ms. Vlock.
It's good to see you again, Eric. All right, please tell us about your previous experiences in group decision-making and how these experiences could be utilized on the city council.
I will go back to my experience with the Planning Commission when I was the chair. And I think one of the lessons that I learned is really trying to get everybody else on the Planning Commission to talk. I have no problem talking. You give me a mic, let me talk, I'll go. I'll probably talk this is one of the things one of my careers is talk past the close. I was really good at talking past the close, knowing when to shut up. I don't know when to shut up. Being able to get everybody else involved in the conversation. I think for those of you that were on the Planning Commission with me, that was one of the big things that I would try to do, is if I wasn't hearing, I would say, Mrs. Vlock, do you have anything I wanted to hear, I knew what I thought, but I needed to know what everybody else thought. You hear what the public thinks, but what do the people around you think? And so I think being able to bring out, and I know the interface for the council is a little bit different than the Planning Commission was. But then there is similar interactions like the Committee of the Whole and things like that are very similar that would play into that. So being able to, listen and being able to, people say things, but then saying, what do you mean by that? Trying to understand, I think that was one of the first learning skills I ever learned was ask somebody what they mean, repeat what they said. Just because they said something isn't necessarily, that's not maybe what they meant. I know I've done it, I've said something and my wife's like, that's not what I meant. And I think that's very important, is making sure that we, in these settings, is understanding that what we're hearing is what our fellow residents and council people, what they meant. And we understand that. We may not agree, but at least making sure that everybody has a chance to be heard.
And can you tell us how you would like to see the city of Wasilla look in the next 5 years?
5 years, get the permit approved.
Say what?
We'll get the permit approved. 5 years from now, that is such a short period of time. I used to think 5 years was a long time, but it happens really fast. What I want to see the city in 5 years, one of the things that I've seen in the city in the last 5 years is, there's, especially since I live right over here on the railroad tracks, is I don't see all of the plastic bags. So there's certain things, what I would like to see is whatever decisions that are made within the city of Wasilla, inside the city of Wasilla, allow the city of Wasilla to shine. It's infrastructure, things to see more people on our streets. And I think some of the ideas with the train station and with the trolley and things like that, I think that's going to bring more people in our community. Not quite sure how to still have that shiny star in the wintertime, which is, of course, the crux of a lot of the landscaping arguments is, for 6 months out of the year, we're a wind-blown landscape. So how do you make Wasilla a shining star during those times of the year? And so I think doing improvements, setting the course of improvements and what they're working with the water system and things like that will help bring the hotels, which then will help bring the people, which then will help bring the new businesses. It's kind of a circular effect of a wheel of change. The more businesses that we can bring into this area over the next 3 to 5 years while our economy is growing, because we are going to be in a growing economy over the next few years because of all the stimulus money that's been loaded in the state. I mean, another $85 million was just awarded last week here to Alaska. And I know at least $4 million of it, I believe, is coming directly into the city of Wasilla, 2-point-something million to the Children's Place. So there's money coming into our community, and so there's gonna be time over the next 3 to 5 years to make improvements. And after that, I don't know. I don't know what the crystal ball for the economy of Alaska looks like. But over the next 3 to 5 years, it looks pretty good. It's a little slow at the moment. We're coming, the housing market in this area is down about 20-something%. Refinancing is down about 80%. So businesses are struggling because every time somebody does a transaction, it's like every time somebody rings a bell, Angel gets its wings. But every time there's a sale, a transaction, that money goes through the community. One of the lessons I learned in real estate is the types of businesses. There's certain types of businesses come to our community and they're really good for us. And then there's other types of businesses that come to our community and all they do is they take the money and it goes elsewhere. The best business for our community is a community college. Number one impact as far as returning investment back into the community. Fast food chain, not so much. But they come, there's a reason for having them too. Every business has a reason. So my goal is to create a business ripe environment within the city of Wasilla, and then to use those tax dollars to make the city prettier, to make our water system better, to make our police, make things better within the city of Wasilla, so those of us that live here want to stay living here, and those that want to do business here don't just go, oh, that's the retail shopping center. We want to be more than that. That would be my goal.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Eric.
Is that? All right.
That's it.
Okay. Thank you.
Crystal, would you go bring Ms. Cottle down, please?
Should I go back upstairs or should I go home?
It's your call. But they won't. Oh, no, you can't go home.
Yeah, you can't.
Whoever, just for the sake of the audience, whoever is selected will immediately take their oath of office
Yeah.
and then join the group.
You break it, you buy it.
Oh, no. I'm not the only one that sits in it. Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Cottle, for joining us. First, you have an opportunity to make a 5-minute opening statement to the council. And then after that, each council member will ask 2 questions. And we're going to take those in alphabetical order, starting with Mr. Crafton. So, thank you, Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you, Madam Mayor, esteemed council members. My name is Catherine Cottle, although most of the time I go by Kathy, because for most of my life, the only ones that ever called me Catherine was my grandmother in the IRS. Just a little bit about myself and my background. Yep, and please excuse me, I'm nervous, so I'll trip over my tongue a few times. I came to Alaska in 1989 when I had the opportunity to come work in a gold mining camp in central Alaska. At the end of the season, when we packed everything up, I went back to Wisconsin for 2 weeks to pack up my household and move permanently to Alaska because it was the first time in my life I felt like I was home. I finished raising my children here, and I've helped raise grandchildren here. I'm a 13-year resident of Wasilla. I moved to Wasilla in 2011 when my husband decided it was time to come home to the community he was born and raised in and be closer to his family. We bought our retirement home here, and this is where I intend to stay. My employment background is pretty varied. I would consider myself kind of a jack of all trades. I started as a young city kid who married a dairy farmer and was totally out of my element. But I got my hands on every single class available, agriculture, horticulture, dairy science, to learn what I needed to learn for that industry. I even went to school to become a licensed artificial inseminator. Not something I usually put on a resume, but I could still do it. Part of the reason I did as much learning as I could was when I was very young, my great-grandfather instilled 2 things in me. And one is that no knowledge is wasted. And the other one was that whatever you do in life, do it the best you can. He said, I don't care if you're a garbage man, be the best garbage man you can be. And I've always tried to live by that. I thought my great-grandpa walked in water and was the smartest man in the world. And he was pretty wise in very many ways. Wherever life has taken me for employment, and I've worked in different industries, I've always strived to learn as much as I can. And so wherever I've worked, I have obtained certifications in whatever field I worked in at the time. My bulk of my experience have been in the fields of finance, human resources, hotel and retail management, and I know that's a long ways from a dairy farm. I owned a bookkeeping business in Valdez that was a very thriving, growing business until I followed my husband here to Wasilla. I'm experienced in budgeting, fiscal, and long-range planning, and pretty much all aspects of business I've had the opportunity to work in. My civic experience, I was honored to serve on boards of directors of the City of Valdez Museum and Historical Archive, the Valdez Convention and Visitor Bureau, Valdez United Way. I was co-chair of the local emergency planning committee and had the opportunity to lobby in Juneau for funding. I was a member of the City of Valdez Beautification Task Force, the Eagles Auxiliary, the Elks, where I was a trustee, Valdez Rotary, and the Alaska Hospitality Industry Association. In Wasilla here, I was appointed to Parks and Rec Commission and then appointed to the Planning Commission, which I currently serve on. I'm on the board of directors of My House, the building committee for the new Carson Cottle Center, and have had the opportunity to serve on the lengthy and very intense selection committee awarding the contract for phase 1 of the Carson Cottle Center. But aside from all of that, I have had the opportunity of 20 years of experience of behind the scenes working in support of local government. 9 years here in Wasilla and 11 in Valdez. I got an education in local government most people don't get: the good, the bad, the ugly, and the amazing. It would be my honor to serve on the Wasilla City Council, to be a contributing member representing residents and helping to move Wasilla into the future. And I thank you all for your time and your patience.
Mr. Crafton.
Thank you, Mayor. Kathy. First question is, what strategies would you employ to ensure transparency and accountability in city government, particularly regarding budgetary decisions and expenditures?
Well, all budgets for governments need to be transparent. They need to be public record. I believe that budgets work better when departments can have a big say in their budgets because they know better how to spend it. But the public needs to always be informed. The public needs to know where all the money is spent, how it's spent, why it's spent for things. I mean, not to try to nickel and dime departments or a city, but I think budget hearings, it would be nice if more people would attend budget hearings. I attended budget hearings for years in Valdez because I always learned something new. You learn things that you didn't realize are going on. I think trying to educate the public regarding city budgets, that just educating the public to get them involved is one of the best transparencies you can have because it makes you accountable to the public. And I think the city does, a fairly good job of that. But there's, every place has room for improvement. But I think what we're doing now as far as social media and I know that records are open to the public. And if the public want to come in and look line item by line item, they can. And I think that's about as transparent as you get.
Thank you. Second question, what steps would you take to promote economic development and job creation in Wasilla while also preserving the city's unique character and quality of life?
One of the things I would do would be looking to expand our borders where possible, to incorporate more land that can be zoned industrial. We do not have a lot of industrial land here. And with that brings more opportunity for jobs. And we need every job that we can here. And we need to keep as many jobs as we can, because every job we keep here pays benefits back to the city. We have our zoning as it is, that you don't have industrial where you have residential. And that helps keep the flavor of neighborhoods and protects areas like that. I think making the city really welcoming to begin with. The city right now is doing one of the best things they can, and that's the rewrite of Title 16. That's one of the things that has needed work on. You know, the city, you say you're open for business, and yet it makes it hard for people to do business at times because of some of our codes, and it just makes people feel like it's not real welcoming to come. The rewrite of Title 16, I think, will change a lot of that, will make it more welcoming for how people want to feel about coming here and building a home or starting a business. I think that's going to be one of the biggest steps toward an economic driver for the public to see that we want you here.
Thank you, Kathy.
Mr. Graham?
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Kathy, for being here and for volunteering to step up and serve even more. So as a council person, you have a continuous opportunity and a responsibility to amend, improve, and enforce city code through budgeting process and listening and proposing solutions which will move the city forward. As such, you have a tremendous opportunity to showcase your experience and your values. What experience will you leverage, and what values will you use to make Wasilla a better place for the citizens?
You don't ask easy questions.
I can repeat that if you like.
No, that's okay. As far as experience, I think that the fact that I have worked in numerous industries, but I'm just a regular person, I think I can relate more to the general public than a lot of people can that have only ever worked in one industry in their life. I have lived in different areas. I have, even in Alaska, I have lived in the bush, and I have lived in a city. There's pros and cons to all of it. But I think the fact that I love where I live right now is one of the biggest selling points there is. I love Wasilla. We're a city, but we're not Anchorage. And we don't want to be Anchorage. We always want to be better. We still have that community feeling here. And it's a place that I want my family to be. And if I want my family here, I think that's one of the biggest selling points for other people that have families. If you're representing the city, you're the biggest salesman there is. And you're always promoting, no matter what. But people have to feel that it comes from your heart. And this is where I live, and this is where I'm staying. I have several grandchildren that are adults now that live out of state and are looking to come back here to Alaska. I want them here. And I'll do all I can to try to convince them, because we have jobs here, we have great schools here, we have so much to offer. So I think that's where I stand with that.
Thank you. Second question. So what are the three biggest priorities for the city council to address? I'm not referring to specific projects, but to general categories. So again, what are the three biggest priorities for the city council to address?
I think the first one is infrastructure. We have an aging infrastructure here. We do currently have some roads that aren't paved, but we have roads that were paved quite a while ago that need work, that need repaving, need fixing. Our water and sewer systems need updating. We still have people that aren't on city water or city sewer. Well, I know there's a lot that, like I myself, I'm kind of on city sewer. I have a septic tank, but the city maintains and pumps it. I'm not on city water. There's a lot of people I'd love to be, but we don't have that infrastructure expanded as much as we're gonna need to at times. Because our infrastructure is aging, that's things that really have to be calculated down the road, life expectancy of every system we have. And that's money. But there's still necessities. When people move here, they want a certain level of amenities, quality of life. I think another real priority is safety in our community. With our police department, I think it's very imperative that we always maintain the level and the amount of police officers that we need for a growing population, for a growing business district. We want people to think of Wasilla as, this is a safe place. This is a safe place to do business. It's a safe place to raise your families. And we can't do that if we don't have enough law enforcement, if we don't have the personnel that we need. Safety is such a number one thing for so many people. I worked in Anchorage and it seemed like there was a shooting every day. But there's no way I'd ever live there. Absolutely no way. We have so many things here to offer, and I think another priority for the city here, if we want to attract people, besides the infrastructure we need, the public safety that we need, is the quality of life. And quality of life is something that people do look at. Are there things for them to do when they're not working? We have amazing parks. We've got beautiful state-of-the-art library. We've got a nice art center, sports center. But as our population grows, as our city borders grow, we have to keep those things in mind, that we have more people to serve. Because, well, basically we serve so many people that don't live in the city also. We are such a hub for so many people. But I think those are the three things for me: the infrastructure, the public safety, and the quality of life.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Johnson?
Thank you, Mrs. Cottle, for coming and putting up with all of our questions. I apologize for not being in chambers tonight and look forward to talking to you in the future. I have several questions that are really pretty simple. What experience do you have in the budgeting process and understanding financial statements?
Well, the fact that I had my own bookkeeping business is a good start, I think. I have been chief financial officer. I was for a company in Anchorage that, actually the owners had 3 companies, and I ended up overseeing all 3 companies. I have been doing accounting and budgeting and annual reports and fiscal planning probably for 30 years. It's something that I started many years ago. For some reason, I decided to take accounting classes in high school, even though I was dyslexic, and got hooked on it because everything is numbers. And I am very anal retentive, I guess, when it comes to budgets and fiscal planning. A lot of people don't understand that a budget is a living, breathing document, and budgets change. And you need to be able to navigate budgets, really watch where you need to change budgets. And because they're not the same from year to year and quarter to quarter, and sometimes month to month. And so you have to be able to be flexible to roll with a budget if you're going to really do the best you can for the organization or the business that you work for. Spreadsheets, financial planning, those are just kind of second nature to me after all these years. Believe me, if something's off a penny, I just get very anal about it.
Thank you very much. Very good answer. My second question is along ethics lines. Do you have any perceived conflicts of interest, as such like personal business interests within the city, extended families who own businesses within the city, or family members who are employed or associated by the city? Thank you.
I do not have any family members that work for the city. I have relations that are by marriage that have businesses within the city. As far as any conflicts of interest, I serve on the board for my house, but that's it. So I don't have any perceived conflicts of interest.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Rubio.
Thank you, Mayor. My first question, what priority issue would you champion to improve services to Wasilla's residents? And what recommendations would you bring forward to support the proposal?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is something that the city's already undertaking, and that's the rewrite of Title 16. Because Title 16 is such an integral part and piece of the puzzle with the whole comprehensive plan. It affects homeowners, it affects business owners, it affects people potentially looking at doing business or anything in the city, and that all comes down to revenue for the city. The whole rewrite of Title 16, it's been a very interesting process so far. It's been very enlightening. There's a lot of moving pieces and pieces that all have to fit together, but they all work together for the lifestyle we want here in the city, the type of business, you know, the businesses we want here. You want everything to work together and to fit together. And to me, that's one of the biggest pieces that need to be worked on in the city, and the city's already working on it.
Number two, what are your priorities or your philosophy in how city revenue should be spent?
I think city revenues, honestly, the way the city is spending revenues net right now, I think the city has a good handle on the way they're spending it. I think we need to look at parts of the city that if we're generating revenue, we need to watch how we spend. We need to watch how we spend all of our revenue from the city. And I think the city does a good job. There's not one particular thing that I could pick out that I think needs massive improvement. But I think it's important to never become complacent in how we spend our revenues, that we need to always be striving to look for more efficient ways to spend it, more ways that will benefit the whole of the city and not just certain segments.
Thank you.
Ms. Vlock.
Thank you. Hi, Kathy. Please tell us about your previous experiences in group decision-making and how these experiences could be utilized on the city council.
A lot of my experience in group decision-making has been spent on the many boards that I've served on, where everything is group discussion, it is voting, it is not just one person's opinion. It's taking the opinions of everyone that is there and reasonably discussing them. You may not agree with them, but then there's your chance to try to champion your thoughts or your opinions. But it's important to not put personal feelings into things. We do that as human beings anyway, but when you're making decisions, why sometimes I think the group decisions are the best decisions, because it's not just your opinion. Someone else may have something to say that was totally not yet on your radar. And being a part of so many organizations that it's by committee or by boards, I think I've got a lot of years of experience with that.
Thank you. All right, can you tell us how you would like the city of Wasilla to look in the next 5 years?
In the next 5 years, well, I'd love to have my road paved. Just throwing that out there. Oh, wow. What I'd like to see in the next 5 years, we have an aging population here, of which some people would say I'm one of, but because we do have an aging population in not only the city but the state, in the next 5 years, would love to see the city partner with private enterprise to have a regular city bus service. There's a lot of seniors that don't live in the senior centers. They don't live in senior housing grouping areas that maybe don't drive as much anymore, that shouldn't be driving anymore. And not only are seniors, but you have a lot of households that you've got one parent working and they're a one vehicle family. There's a lot of that. And when you can take a bus and go to get your groceries, or take a bus and get close to within walking distance of medical appointments or to your kids' school, things like that, you're moving people around the city. I think when people are moving around a lot, people tend to get a little bit more involved because they see a lot more things. And I think that's just good for the health of a community. You don't have people that are kind of stuck. That's something I think I'd really like to see in the next 5 years. It's not something that, if you're not as big as Anchorage, a lot of places don't have that. But I think that we have a need for that here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. And now, okay, how do the council want to cast their votes? Mr. Graham?
Madam Mayor, I move the city council move into executive session to discuss subjects that may tend to prejudice the reputation or character of any person, provided that person may request a public discussion in accordance with Wasilla Municipal Code. Specifically, we're going to discuss the applications of the 3 persons that appeared before us for the vacant city council seat A. Those present in executive session would be the city council members, the city clerk, and the city attorney.
I second it.
It's been moved by Councilmember Graham and seconded by Councilmember Rubio to enter executive session for subjects that tend to prejudice the reputation or character of any person, provided that person may request a public discussion in accordance with Wasilla Municipal Code 2.04.080B3, specifically to discuss applications of the 3 candidates for vacant seat A. Those present in the executive session will be the entire city council and the city clerk. And the attorney. Is there any objection to the motion? Hearing none, the council will move to executive session in the council conference room. The time is 7:34 p.m.
All right, Jamie, would you please give me a call when you are in the conference room at my stated cell phone?
Yes, sir, will do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tim Johnson.
I think we need some more words.
Has left.
p.m. Is there any objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion carries. Madam Clerk,
for a motion? Or?
You guys want to make a motion?
Madam Mayor, I move that we thank the three applicants for the City Council Seat A and approve Kathleen Cottle as the new council member for Seat A, Wasilla City Council.
Is there a second?
Rubio seconds.
It has been moved by Councilmember Graham, seconded by Councilmember Rubio to appoint Kathy Cottle to Council Seat A. Is there objection to the motion?
Madam Mayor, I object to the motion.
Is there discussion?
Oh,
And then we'll do a
discussion.
roll call vote.
Discussion. Okay, Mr. Crafton.
Thank you, Mayor. Since I already mentioned I wanted to object to this one, I will just speak out that I did not feel in favor of moving towards this direction. Again, it was a very hard decision to make. Obviously, we were in there for over an hour, and yeah, I'd like to make it clear that this was not an easy decision for any of us here. Thank you.
Okay. Is there further discussion?
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Johnson?
I wish to make the following comments prior to this vote. It was a very difficult decision, and obviously the council is very divided over this particular issue. With that regard, I will vote so that the council does not have an impasse, and that will be the vote that I cast. Thank you.
Further discussion, Mr. Graham?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to go back to say that you can't possibly believe how thankful we are to have three such qualified people be interested in the council. We usually have a bunch of people interested in the council, but executive session doesn't take an hour and a half to make things happen. So I just come back to the point that everybody has a tremendous amount to offer the city, and I certainly hope that you will continue forward in that, whether that's on a board or commission, or whether that's running for Seat A, which will be up for election at the end of this year. Is that correct? So in October. So there's lots of opportunities there, and man, I would hate to see you guys not be part of the city, because everyone that sat there tonight did an outstanding job, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Further discussion? Hearing none. Madam Clerk, roll call vote.
Thank you. This is on the appointment of Catherine E. Cottle to the vacant City Council Seat A. Councilmember Graham, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes, to avoid an impasse.
Councilmember Crafton?
No.
Councilmember Vlock?
Yes.
Councilmember Rubio?
Yes.
Madam Mayor, the motion passes with Councilmembers Graham, Johnson, Vlock, and Rubio in support. Councilmember Crafton opposed.
Okay. Madam Clerk, please administer the oath of office to Catherine Cottle.
I, Catherine Cottle,
Having been duly appointed as an official of the City of Wasilla,
having been duly appointed as an official of the City of Wasilla,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Alaska,
the Constitution of the State of Alaska,
and the City of Wasilla Municipal Code,
and the City of Wasilla Municipal Code,
and that I will honestly, faithfully, and impartially
and that I will honestly, faithfully, and impartially
discharge my duties as council member
discharge my duties as council member
for the City of Wasilla to the best of my ability.
for for the city of Wasilla to the best of my ability.
Congratulations. Please. And actually, Ms. Cottle, if you want to assume your seat at the dais.
Okay, we are on to audience comments, a time for members of the public to share their views with the council. This is not a question and answer period or a time for dialogue. Speakers may be referred to the administration, or issues raised may be taken under advisement by the council or administration. Is there anyone present who would like to address the city council? If so, please come forward and begin by stating your first and last name. You have 3 minutes.
Madam Mayor, my name is Eric Bushnell. I'm a resident of the city of Wasilla. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for the chance to speak to all of you. It was a short notice decision for myself when I found out it was open, and I had about half a day to put something together and think about it. But one thing I wanted to comment on this is not that. I spent a lot of time over the last week looking at videos of the different fun things that you guys do, and different comments. One of the things that came up is you guys were talking about historical information on short-term rentals. And I wanted to shed some light on one of the questions you guys had about why was a 75 unit limit put in place. And the reason is because the planner at the time wanted a 25 number unit, only allowing 25 in the city. We felt that there would be should be a higher number, but the 75 threshold was set higher than we expected to have licensed units. But at a point that if it reached that threshold, we could potentially see impacts to our affordable housing and would allow the city to reset itself should that become an issue. So it was a looking to the future, where can we put a stopgap in here if we need it? And that was the reason behind the 75 number. Not that we felt that we would get there, because the type of properties here in the city of Wasilla are really more family and home versus the VBRO experience of the lakefront property, or the, I have a client down in Homer who has a caboose. We don't have a lot of cabooses around here, but that's what VBRO is really pushing towards. And we only have a few of those type of residents here inside the city limits. We have a lot of housing for people. And so I don't anticipate a huge run on the VBRO market, especially if we get a few hotels here in the future. So thank you for your time. I was trying to think of another thing that I saw in the comments. But I think that's about it. You guys will have fun with the landscaping and finishing all of that up. So good luck to everyone, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else? Seeing no one, we will close audience comments, bring you back to the dais. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Pardon me, I just wanted to congratulate Ms. Cottle on her appointment. I look forward to working with you, and I will be in touch tomorrow as to next steps. And then we will see you all here next regular meeting, April 8th.
Okay. Councilmember Graham.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thanks to the survivors of the ordeal here. I've had two people sitting in the back the whole time. I haven't said a word. It's great to have you here and to see that there's an interest, not just from persons who want to be on the council or want to be part of the government, but interest from citizens that want to keep informed and chime in where necessary. So thank you for being here. That's great. I also wanted to obviously congratulate Kathy. I'm sure it'll be more fun than you expected being on the council. But remember, you volunteered, so go from there. And then I also wanted to do something that I haven't done in my 9 years on the council, and that's to do a shout out to a local business. And that business would be Jersey Mike's Subs. Today was their national franchise, national business, whatever day of giving. So today, anybody that bought a sandwich at Jersey Mike's Subs, 100% of the proceeds, not the profits, 100% of the proceeds went to the Special Olympics. And in the case of our Jersey Mike's here, went to Special Olympics Alaska. So, I mean, that really shows some commitment to community. Not every business can do that. Not every business should do that. I'm sure if you were to donate all the proceeds from Lithia for a day, yeah, that would be your last day at the dealership. But I mean, that shows the kind of commitment, shows the kind of pride people have in their community, not just the community they live in, but the state of Alaska and all of the citizens of the state. So I just wanted to give that shout out. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Crafton.
Thank you, Mayor. Congratulations, Kathy, on your appointment. I want to say 2 years ago, Alina and I were sitting on the other side of that. We also had another gentleman that left, Mr. Todd Stafford was also with us. So I have been on the other side of this dais when they were in that room for, gosh, I don't know, 45 minutes, an hour. It felt like a long, long time. It's not easy for something to do. You're putting yourself out there. Everything you just said tonight is on public record. Everything's been recorded, and it really isn't an easy thing to do. It's a stressful thing to do. So I feel you 110% what it's like. And at that time, I also was one not selected. So just keep in mind, if you still want on it, we've got 2 seats up for election this year. Keep that in mind. So thank you all so much for being here. Again, apologies, it was a 3.5 hour long meeting, but we really appreciate everybody coming out and learning about some of the process too. So thank you.
Councilmember Rubio.
Thank you. Yes, exactly. I'm going to piggyback on what Ian said. He said everything I was going to say. Other than I wouldn't wait till fall time because the Planning Commission now has an open spot. So
We have 2.
Two, technically.
Two.
Technically, yeah. So there we go, guys.
Here we go, guys.
All right. So hopefully we'll see you sooner than later.
Okay. Councilmember Villar.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I have to say about the same thing. All 3 of you would do an awesome job. I mean, it was so tough. Ian and Alina talked about being in that process. I was on the council on their processes, and we didn't take as long. But, you know, it was really tough. But one thing we all have in common is we have been on the Planning Commission, and so it's a good place to get knowledge. And of course, Eric, you were on there a long, long time, but it is a good place. Anthony, if you're interested in that too. But I just want to thank you for putting your name in the hat, and yeah, don't give up. You guys would do great. So don't give up. Come back. Thank you.
Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, candidates. I really appreciate your desire to serve the city.
Welcome, Kathy.
And I really appreciate the frank discussion that we had. I believe that the open and honest discussion is what the council is all about, rather than just rubber stamping one decision or just following on. So I really appreciate the discussion, and thank you all. And good luck, Kathy. We'll look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Incoming Councilmember Cottle.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, all of you. I can really appreciate how this was not an easy decision. Sitting out here waiting for all of you was not easy for the 3 of us, I'm sure. Knowing that it was not an easy decision makes me feel like I was really in good company. If you had to debate that long, I was in very good company, and I appreciate that very much. I look forward to working with all of you. I have to give one little tiny jab to Councilman Graham when he said Kathleen Cottle. because Kathleen Cottle is my husband's ex-wife. It was the second time I was the second Kathy in a marriage, so, but that's okay, I forgive you. But maybe that's why I go by Kathy most of the time too, so. But I look forward to working with all of you and going forward here in the council. Thank you.
Through the chair to the council, and I apologize. This was a procedural matter I should have taken care of. Mrs. Cottle, since you have been sworn into office, I assume you are officially resigning your seat on the planning commission. Will you just confirm that?
Yes, I am.
Okay, effective immediately.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Kathy, welcome.
Thank you.
Look forward to working with you. You guys, you know, it had to be a tremendous decision because all of you are well qualified. Like I say, we have 2 open seats now on Planning Commission. So see Jamie tomorrow. She'll be glad to take your application because I think most of us started on the Planning Commission. And about half of us have been in your seat. Trust me, I've been in it twice. And look where I'm at today. So, don't ever give up. You have great qualities, all of you do. And I am thrilled that you want to be part of our city because this is the best place in the state to live, to work, and to play. And we are going to be, we're already on the trajectory to be the shining star of the state. Because we've got great things happening and stay tuned. There's things that is gonna happen, but I'm not at liberty to divulge. So stay tuned, because we're moving. And I'm really excited about it. But please, if you have any inclination, Eric, you've been on planning, you know what it is.
Mr. Borges.
I'm sorry?
Borges.
Huh?
Borges.
Mr. Borges, you've not, but it's a great place to learn. I served 6 years on planning, way back in the day. So, anyway, thank you all very much. Thank you guys for being here. And with no further business at hand, I'm adjourning the meeting unless an objection is raised. Hearing none, the meeting is adjourned at 9:00.